Good evening and welcome to Metro Focus. I'm Jenna Flanagan. The MTA has called for an emergency meeting this week to discuss Governor Cuomo's last-minute plan to call off the L train shutdown. The emergency meeting comes as the New York City Transit Authority president, Andy Byford, has said he wants to bring independent experts in to vet the safety of the plan, promising that he will not be, quote, steamrolled into moving forward on the governor's proposal. So joining me now to discuss this and several other things is City and State political reporter Jeff Colton. So Jeff, there's a lot of action happening with the MTA this week. First of all, tell me about this meeting that we're hearing about.
That's right. So an emergency meeting, even the board members of the MTA were kind of caught by surprise. This was just called a few days ago. The point of this meeting is to have the construction contractors that will now be covering the L train rehabilitation, the tunnel rehabilitation, to basically explain to the board themselves what they're going to be doing underground if the MTA board approves. Mm-hmm. The board will then be listening and say, okay, that sounds good, that sounds good. This is pretty important that the board understands what's happening because so far all we've gotten are some random quotes from the governor to various, newspapers and TV stations. Nobody knows exactly what is happening in that tunnel. Except maybe, some experts and the ones that are actually going to be doing the construction work. So this is an emergency meeting. Hopefully we're going to get some answers from this. And then the MTA board has to approve this plan. They will not be approving it at the meeting. They have some time to mull it over.
Well, one of the things that caught me that I thought was interesting was Andy Byford's use of the word steamrolled. And I only say that because this was a plan, the original plan to shut down the L train that had been worked on, had been studied, there were community hearings, there was a lot of yelling, and to suddenly have it change, this almost seems like this is as much of a power play with the governor's last-minute proposal as it is trying to find out what the best answer is.
That's right. Even if this new plan is better, and it seems that it would be better in many ways, there's been so much frustration from the leadership because they were planning on this difficult, worst plan, and they went through all this stress with it. And now,
a lot of stress, a lot of people.
That's right. All these meetings and all these, community members yelling at them, and now they feel like the governor has come in and said we don't need to do that anymore. So there's this probably combined relief and anger. They do feel steamrolled. Because of that, possibly, MTA Chairman Fernando Ferrer, he's the interim chairman, but he was appointed, I believe, by Governor Andrew Cuomo. He has called in for some independent experts, even independent of the governor, independent of the companies, totally independent, to vet the plan themselves and just get a third or fourth opinion on this to really make sure that the L train shutdown plan isn't too politically motivated, that it won't end up with the tunnel caving in. There's
also,
many issues.
Both of them very, very important issues.
Right, there's many issues that could happen with this, so they want to get, a fourth opinion on this thing.
Well, one last thing I want to ask about the MTA, which still fits into this, is that apparently the budget director of the state is now proposing even another meeting to figure out who is finally in charge of the MTA, because everybody claims to be not it.
This is an incredible back and forth that's been going on for years. The governor sometimes wants control of the MTA, sometimes claims that he doesn't control it. My latest theory is that Governor Cuomo is a noted control freak, and if he doesn't have complete and total, ultimate control of the MTA, he feels like he doesn't own a thing. In reality, he has very much, mostly, control over the MTA.
Okay, but still, some armchair psychology from a political reporter.
Exactly.
Moving on to one more issue that the governor is floating, of course, and the proposals that he's going to be putting forth, one of them is banning plastic bags.
That's right. Tomorrow, Tuesday the 15th, is a big deal. It's the State of the State delivery of the address by Cuomo. It's like it's political Christmas. Cuomo, the most powerful guy in Albany, comes out with all of these political proposals that he is going to say needs to pass this year. So legalization of marijuana, plastic bags, going to fund the MTA. In past years, he's said lots of really exciting things for progressives and Democrats that usually don't actually end up happening. This year, there's a better chance because of a Democratic Albany.
Well, speaking of exciting things that Democrats and progressives want to hear, we heard a lot of that coming from Mayor de Blasio. Tell us about we saw him recently again on CNN speaking to a national audience. Now, of course, the State of the City address that he gave was very local, but it still felt very national.
That's right. Mayor de Blasio has very much set himself up as a New York, at least lately, New York City focused, but his ideas could then spread across the nation. And, he told Jake Tapper at CNN over the weekend that he has not ruled out running for president. It's unclear exactly what his end game is here, whether de Blasio will run for president or whether he, truly and honestly just wants to get these progressive democratic ideals a larger audience across the nation and spread them. Whatever it is, it's clear that the mayor thinks that his way is the right way to do government, and he wants more people to do that, even in cities that are less liberal than New York.
Well, of course, even in your own piece, you did highlight that in addition to all of the things that the mayor was putting forth in his speech, he did leave out a few really important key issues facing the city.
That's right. Particularly, he barely said a word about homelessness, and he mentioned NYCHA, the New York City Housing Authority, only once. These are important issues that the mayor really could impact. And he's been long criticized for not saying enough about them. And once again, he kind of ignored them in the state of the city to focus on his wins, his successes.
All right, well, moving from the mayor to another New York City resident who has made a huge splash nationally, and that is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. There's been a lot of, let's say, consternation in the media about all of the attention that she's able to garner, and I understand perhaps some jealousy within Democratic rankings.
Sure seems so. Yeah, there were a couple articles that came out in this past week with many, many quotes from Congress members, both from New York and other places, saying, basically quantifying the impact that Ocasio-Cortez has had. She has everybody looking over their shoulders, afraid that they're going to get called out on Twitter for doing something wrong. But I think the overarching point is that Ocasio-Cortez has already shifted the conversation with pay-go rules, about balancing the budget. She has brought that into the forefront with this Green New Deal that she's been pushing, which is tons of spending on environmental issues. She has forced even progressives to talk about things that they might not have been talking about otherwise.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there. Jeff, I want to thank you so much for joining us, as always, and we look forward to more of your reporting.
Thank you.
Thank you.